Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Napoleon and today we're back with another Enlisted video, and this time we're going to be covering the Gold Order weapon suggestions that I have. Of course, this is not only dealing with Gold Order weapons, but other weapons that can be useful for Enlisted, such as prototype weapons, or other weapons that Enlisted could be filling out their campaigns. And in this case, this is almost kind of the case, because we're going to be doing a deep dive into Italian weapons. But before we get started, this video has obviously been made possible for the friends at Discord, meaning that if you haven't liked, subscribe, or joined Discord, I highly suggest that you do. The first weapon we have is a Scotty M1937. Now, what we have is very little about the weapon, because it was only a prototype weapon that was pretty successful. In short, the Italian army had a light machine gun. It was called the Breda Mod 30, and it was very bad. Of course, unlike the Breda Mod 30, Scotty was also on the chair when he was doing his sampling and showing to the Italian armed forces. The only reason why Breda made the contract was because it showed off its weapon first compared to the Scotty M1937. Hence, the Italian army adopted the Breda Mod 30, and Scotty was never actually adopted, although Italians did realize that it was a much superior weapon, unlike the Breda. The only issue why it wasn't mass-produced instead of the Breda, and was because they had to stop production to make the Scotty, which would take a long-ass time. Needless to say, the Breda was obviously one of the worst terrible weapons in World War II. The Scotty obviously had a lot of benefits, such as it was also chambered to 7.7 by 56 Breda, or 6.5 by 52 Caracano, and it had detachable box magazines, unlike the Breda, whose magazine was attached to the machine gun, meaning that if the dust was stuck in the Breda, then you're pretty much screwed. The Scotty obviously has box magazines, so it wouldn't have that rate of issue. That said, in terms of rate of issues, we also have a 20 to 25 round magazine with 500 rate of fire, which is pretty good. The maximum range is 2000 while the effective range is 600. But that said, let's move on to the next one. Next one we have is the Scotty OM42 Tropobella. This is a prototype submachine gun made by Scotty in the middle of World War II. The sublime executions and power of the cell thanks to the caliber was inspiring concepts dating back 10 years. Although it was dating back 10 years, Alfredo Scotty, who was a successful designer and entrepreneur, makes successful contributions in various sectors of the market. In this case, it is the firearm market. During World War II, he designed a submachine gun chambered in the powerful 9x25mm Mauser, departure from the commonly used 9mm Parabellum. The prototype manufactured by OM of Pesca shared similar qualities to the Swiss S1 100 submachine gun, possibly influenced by Scotty's business partnerships in Switzerland. The model was labeled Modification 1942, featured a mechanical design reminiscent of mid-30s, and being developed during the war, its structure resembled the Austrian MP-34 submachine gun produced by Steyr on the design. Notably, Scotty's prototype utilized a top-cover barrel with a mechanism of sling bolt with a returning lever and a wooden non-foldable stock, which was pretty common. However, certain design choices raised questions, such as the right side magazine loader muzzle, contrary to the left side, which had better issues. The weapon had 20-round alternated professional magazines with spring doors to prevent foreign objects from entering, which was also interesting. Other features including a recapproaching to clock throttle and selectors for fire, single shot, and burst, which also could translate into the fact that this does not have full auto. While the prototype exhibited remarkable precision in traditional constructions and stuff, the unconventional caliber and the difficulty of managing its powerful recoil may have contributed to the prototype's failure in advance. In my idea, this is essentially an Italian, well, should I say, Enlisted, if ever implement this, which should have a high damage, such as the M3 grease gun, but heavy rate of fire, but very high recoil, so that's going to be interesting. That said, we have the MBT 1925 rifle, not to be confused with any main battle tank. The MBT 1925 is fed with Caracano M91 clips that fall out of the bottom when the magazine is empty, aka this magazine folds resembling to the M91, appearing to be in semi-automatic. The massive cylinder bolts in two sections of roughly equal size, front and rear, with the rear section rotating the bolt when the open is cam and shut and then closed. aka this thing is quite interesting. The bolt handle on the right is merged into 2 steps, and there is a long, flat, narrow, essentially top receiver with a slight movement fore and aft, which is interesting. And this is essentially an Italian semi-automatic rifle, which is very interesting and also very prototype-y. Next we have is the Rigotti, which was a gas-operated select-fire rifle with essentially much similar to the Mauser trench rifle or the Springfield-Pedersen device. According to several publications, the prototype rifle was chambered at 6.5 by 52mm Carcano or Mannlicher. The gun was supposedly represented by K. Rigotti with his superiors in private demonstration in 1895, being this old. The Italian newspaper even reported this event in 1900. According to another source, because sources are very rare, a demonstration was held public in Rome in 1900, with 300 rounds fired with a full automatic before the gun was so hot now it's seized up. Yet other sources came that mentions of a demonstration of the same in Pesca Arsenal. Needless to say, the British also took interest and ordered the gun after this event, but have found it quote-unquote unsuitable at the UK National Firearms Centre in Leeds, while it was in chambers 7.65 and 53 Mauser, as found in another American private collection. One unusual feature about the weapon was its trigger, which extended from a slot across the entirety of the trigger guard. This was been theorized to make the weapon easier to operate in heavy gloves, but in reality it just uses the release bolt without accidentally firing the weapon, basically more protection for the guy who might be on the receiving end. Although if you really want to fire this thing, the person will be dead anyway. The trigger guard assembly was also connected to the magazine and needed to be removed in order for the magazine to replace, and the magazine was also a major part of the connection upon military historians, since the weapon was reloaded via stripper clips rather than a detachable magazine, much like the Breda Mod 30. Reportedly, prototypes with magazine can up to 500 rounds existed, but there is no actual service evidence about this, because this weapon is pretty much lost to history. That said, with our final weapon on the list, we have the Breda Mod 38. The Breda 38, not to be confused with the tank-mounted Breda 38, was an Italian tank pattern machine gun used in World War II. It was fitted on the tanks such as the Fiat L40, the Fiat M1139, and the Fiat M1340. It was also surprisingly adopted as an infantry machine gun. The Italians adopted for infantry machine gun for the purpose the gun is mounted on a machine gun tripod with the adapter. In Enlisted, you can essentially hold it like the RD-44 or something like the 30 cal. These temporary open sights, and essentially the body and the temporary sights of the rear muzzle at the break, and these temporary open sights takes the place of the optical sight used on the gun. Basically, they had different sights when using it with the infantrymen. So those are my picks for the essentially Bredas and the various other weapons that Enlisted could add, because as of right now, the Italian tree, or should I say the future Italian tree, is looking very, very lacking. But that's it. That's all for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.